200 years before Jesus, the story of a man named Tobit, a Jew living in the foreign land of Nineveh, the land Jonah could not bear to see spared, is recorded in what we know as the Apocrypha. That is the hidden text that we rarely read or cite as Methodists. And yet the citation of the apocryphal text, and Tobit in particular, became part of the accusation leveled against Denmark Vesey and his allies in the official court account of their rebellion. And whether the accusation was with or without merit, it is clear that Tobit, whose story was likely an adaptation or a redaction of local lore, was familiar with the graveyard shift that characterizes our present day. Within years of when Tobit tells the story of his graveyard shifts, the writer of the last chapter of Daniel receives visions through which he is assured of the redemption that awaits some of those who have died and sleep in the dust of the earth. Having lived through the torments of hegemonic, subjugating, oppressive, and otherwise crushing imperial power. Daniel's visions and their interpretation assure him that although he is living through the graveyard shift, himself dodging death by food or by furnace or by lions or by other ploys of the adversary and its minions, there is a horizon beyond the grave. In fact, the resurrection power of God is revealed to Daniel. What then, First District, is the hope for we who are the graveyard shift? Fearless wisdom is the first hope for those who work the graveyard shift. Folks who have to work the graveyard shift are always trying to figure out how to make it through the graveyard shift. There are occupational hazards. You know, there are high occurrences of diabetes and cancer for those who work the graveyard shift. But the first thing that you need to work the graveyard shift is a fearless wisdom. And I'm occasionally shocked and always disappointed in myself and others when I can perceive the gifts of experience, knowledge, and good judgment, which are the defining characteristics of wisdom, the gifts that would have been reflected in those for whom Daniel had this vision of hope. But we are bound by fear. Fearful wisdom is a paradox for the believer. Because for the believer, the foundation of experience, knowledge, and good judgment is God's isness. That is the fact that God is and was and shall be. And if God's all that, then when our neighbors ask us, like Tobit's neighbors asked him, aren't you afraid? Aren't you afraid you'll get put out of the church? And aren't you afraid you'll never get appointed or promoted? And aren't you afraid the police will shoot you or put you in jail? Aren't you afraid the people will close their pocketbooks? Aren't you afraid no one will follow you? Aren't you afraid to preach from the apocryphal text? Aren't you afraid? You can just say on the basis of your godly experience, knowledge, and good judgment, my hope is built on nothing less than the one whose blood and righteousness taught me how to say, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'll fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod. Courageous leadership is the second hope of we who work the graveyard shift. Tobit took up the sacred but defiling task of burying the bodies of his kinfolk who had been the victims of imperial power of the day, and perhaps their names were Michael or Trayvon or Walter or Tanisha or Natasha. Regardless of their names, their exposed dead bodies were a dishonor to them and to the community of the faithful. And Tobit suffered for his work so much that he fled for his life. And some of us, we would be quick to see Tobit as a coward, because Tobit ran. He tried to get out of Dodge, not recognizing greatest cowardice. So it's not that the hope of the graveyard shifters is that they